Hi, I'm Jason, a 21-year-old who's been through more than most at my age. Growing up, I always felt like I was in the way. After my parents divorced when I was 10, my life became a ping-pong game. Mom had her new boyfriend, and Dad was quickly remarried. Neither of them seemed to remember they had a son who needed a place to call home. I just needed to figure things out. Jason, you'll stay with your dad for a while, Mom said, avoiding my eyes as she packed up my room into boxes. Dad was no better. Your mom should be taking care of this, not me, he muttered when I arrived with my bags. The back and forth continued, each day growing shorter and their patience thinner. You know, Jason, maybe it would be easier if you stayed with your Aunt Marie just until we sort things out, Dad suggested one day, not even trying to hide his relief when I agreed. Aunt Marie was different. Her home was small, but her heart was huge. You're welcome here as long as you need, Jason, she said. The first time someone made me feel wanted in years. Why don't they want me, Aunt Marie? I asked one night, the weight of my parents' neglect heavy on my young shoulders. It's not about you, Jason, it's their loss, not yours, she replied, her words a balm to my aching heart. Living with Aunt Marie wasn't just about having a roof over my head, it was about building a life. Every school morning started with her famous pancakes and ended with her at the kitchen table, helping me with homework. She was more than a guardian, she was my biggest fan and toughest critic all rolled into one. You're smarter than you think, Jason, apply yourself, and you'll go far, she'd say, pushing me to dig deeper in my studies. Under her guidance, I started excelling in school. It wasn't just about making good grades, it was about proving to myself that I could be someone who wasn't defined by my parents' abandonment. Every A on a test, every successful project, wasn't just a win for me, it was a win for us. As I grew older, interactions with my parents became increasingly rare and emotionally distant. Phone calls on birthdays or a card during the holidays were the extent of their efforts, each one feeling more like an obligation they couldn't wait to fulfill. Hey sport, how's school? Dad would ask with an almost scripted detachment. It's going well, thanks, I'd reply, keeping it brief. The calls usually ended as quickly as they started, leaving a hollow feeling that lingered a bit longer each time. But Aunt Marie's presence made up for it all. She was there for every important moment, my first soccer goal, my high school graduation, and every small victory in between. It's not where you come from, Jason, it's where you're going, remember that, she'd remind me whenever I felt the sting of parental neglect. By the time I was ready for college, I had grown into a strong, independent young man, largely due to her influence. Aunt Marie drove me to college orientations, helped me fill out applications, and celebrated with me when the acceptance letters came in. We did it, Aunt Marie, I told her the day I got my acceptance to State University, my first choice. We sure did, kiddo, she replied, her eyes misty with pride. Her unwavering support wasn't just about fulfilling a duty, it was about providing me with the foundation of love and encouragement every child deserves. As I moved into my college dorm, looking back at her waving from the car, I knew that no matter where life took me, the lessons she taught me and the love she gave would always be with me, guiding me forward. The news came during my sophomore year of college. My grandfather, whom I hadn't seen much since I was a kid due to my parents' split but whom I loved very much, had passed away. The news hit me like a thunderbolt, a shock I hadn't anticipated, but the real surprise wasn't just his passing, it was what he left behind for me. According to his will, I was to inherit $1 million. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, feeling a mix of grief and disbelief. Your grandfather always spoke highly of you, Jason, he believed in your future, the lawyer told me as he handed over the documents. I was overwhelmed. My grandfather had watched from a distance, but still saw something in me worth believing in. It was a stark contrast to my parents, who seemed to have forgotten I existed unless it was convenient for them. The inheritance felt like a validation of my efforts and my worth, a reward for all the pain caused by my parents' neglect and abandonment. But it also brought an unexpected complication, the sudden reappearance of my parents. Almost overnight, they were back in my life, their affection overflowing in a way that felt jarring and insincere. Jason, we've missed you so much, Mom said over the phone, her voice dripping with an emotion that didn't quite reach her words. We were just thinking about how long it's been since we all got together, Dad added, as if years of neglect could be brushed aside. Their timing seemed too coincidental to be genuine. It was clear they were aware of the inheritance, and it pained me to realize their sudden interest was likely driven by the knowledge of that $1 million. The calls and messages increased, each filled with feigned concern and hollow sentiments. "We should catch up, Jason. It's been too long," Mom would say, but all I could hear was the unspoken, "We should talk about that money." I found myself in a tough position, torn between the desire to finally have my parents back and the nagging suspicion that their motivations were purely financial. The internal conflict was exhausting, and I leaned heavily on Aunt Marie's wisdom. "They're your parents, Jason, but be careful," she cautioned, her protective nature always at the forefront. "People don't change overnight." As the reality of their intentions became clearer, I braced myself for the inevitable confrontation. I knew I had to confront their sudden change of heart head-on, and I braced myself for what was quickly shaping up to be a significant conflict, one that would test not just my resolve, but the very nature of our familial bonds. The pressure built rapidly after my parents re-entered my life, with each conversation subtly steering towards finances. It wasn't long before the veil was lifted entirely. During a particularly blunt call, my father laid out their true intentions with unsettling clarity. "Jason, I've got some debts that have piled up, and your siblings need support for their education. You have the means to help," Dad said, his voice a mix of faint casualness and desperation. The word family suddenly became a tool wielded with precision to guilt me into opening my wallet. My initial shock at the directness of his request quickly turned to frustration. "We haven't really been a family for years, Dad. Why am I only hearing from you now, and only when you need something?" I countered, my voice firm despite the turmoil inside. "It's not like that, Jason. We've always cared about you," Mom chimed in, her tone soothing but lacking sincerity. The conversation escalated into a confrontation as I challenged their sudden affection. "You can't just walk back into my life and expect me to solve your problems. Where were you when I needed you?" I demanded. "We made mistakes, Jason. We're trying to make things right," Dad replied, his voice strained, but their apologies felt empty and their reasons self-serving. The more we talked, the clearer their motives became, and my resolve only strengthened. I remembered all those years with Aunt Marie, the stability and love she provided without expecting anything in return. That was what family was supposed to be. "No, I can't help you," I finally stated, each word solidifying my decision. "I have my own life to build and responsibilities that don't include fixing your mistakes." The silence that followed was telling. The disappointment was palpable. But with the pain of the confrontation came a deep sense of relief. I had stood up for myself, establishing boundaries that were long overdue. As I sat back, the weight of the conversation pressing down on me, I recognized it as a pivotal moment, one that redefined the dynamics of our relationship. I was no longer the child left behind. I was an adult taking control of my life and my choices. The confrontation, though painful, was necessary. It marked a significant turning point in my journey, reinforcing my independence and my commitment to live a life defined not by the past, but by the values and people who truly mattered. With the decision to stand firm made, I knew I needed to ensure my future and my inheritance were protected. I met with a lawyer to explain the situation and my intentions to invest wisely and secure both my and Aunt Marie's futures. The lawyer advised me on setting up trusts and investment accounts that would safeguard the money and allow it to grow responsibly. "Let's make sure your financial future is as secure as possible, Jason. You've got a good head on your shoulders," the lawyer remarked, approving of my plans to prioritize education and long-term investments. With legal protections in place, I felt a profound sense of relief. For the first time in a long time, I was making decisions entirely on my own, free from manipulation or guilt. Returning home to Aunt Marie, who had been my rock throughout this entire ordeal, I sat at our old kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared countless meals and conversations. I told her everything. "Aunt Marie, I've taken care of the inheritance. There's something else. I've set up a fund for us, for the home improvements you've always talked about and maybe even a trip to Europe, like you've always wanted," I said, watching her reaction closely. Tears welled up in her eyes as she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Jason, you didn't have to do that. I didn't take care of you for any of this." "I know, Aunt Marie," I replied, my voice thick with emotion, "but you gave me a family when I had none. You deserve everything and more. You are the most deserving person of this money. You're the one who took care of me, taught me love, and gave me attention. You are my true mother." The realization of what family truly meant had never been clearer. Family wasn't just about blood relations. It was about who stood by you during your lowest moments, who supported you without conditions, and who loved you unconditionally. Aunt Marie was my family in every way that mattered. Reflecting on the entire journey, I understood that the love and support she provided were the true essence of family. I came to realize that the challenges I faced with my parents were not merely obstacles, but valuable lessons that had fortified my resolve and deepened my understanding of loyalty and love. As I looked to the future, I felt more confident and secure in who I was and in my ability to navigate whatever life might present. With Aunt Marie by my side and a clear path ahead, I was ready to embrace new possibilities. I understood that true wealth wasn't measured by my bank account but by the relationships that had endured and the resilience I had gained. The clarity about what truly matters and the strength to stand up for myself were the real inheritances from my grandfather and father. These lessons would guide me long after the money was spent, ensuring that I lived a life rich in love and integrity, a life that Aunt Marie and I would build together. That concludes our story. Now, here's a question for you. Is it ever justifiable to cut off family members financially if they only show interest when they want something? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you found this story impactful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more thought-provoking content. Your support helps us bring these stories to light. Let's continue the conversation and explore these complex family dynamics together.